What's up, everyone? You're very used to seeing us in little squares about this big, but it is the crew from Constellation Research coming to you live from AWS reInvent for a live CRTV. I couldn't resist getting you guys together and actually having a conversation about what we've been seeing. So going to go down the row here with my colleagues because we don't actually get a chance to do this live and in Memorex. Are we allowed to say that? Are we allowed? We can say that.
Yeah.
We can say
It ages us, though.
It ages us, maybe, but heck with it. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Well, last time you said outside in a vineyard area setting.
That is true. The last time we did this together, we were outside. There was a bench. There was a bus. It was a thing. There was
Birds
a
chirping.
scarecrow.
We had
It
a
was
whole
a lot of
thing.
fun.
Yeah.
There was, I think there was a bagpiper, but
This is much more professional.
this is much more professional. And just in case everyone was wondering, yes, Holger did rearrange the plants. Sitting
noticed.
behind his head, if anyone
Feng
noticed.
Shui is great.
Feng Shui is very important. Okay, let's get to it. AWS, I think I'm gonna go ahead and theme this, that time I came to Vegas and stood in front of a fire hose. And unexpectedly got blasted with announcements. But Doug, what did you think?
What time did you come to reInvent and not get blasted?
But see, that's the thing. I've watched online so many times that I wasn't expecting the whole
okay.
like, oh God, there's more.
Well, as one of the veterans.
As a veteran, we're gonna go down this path. I like it.
Yeah, announced by Matt Garman yesterday, highlighted first thing in Swami's speech this morning, later emphasized with a full demo, and then mentioned prominently again by Matt Garman in the Q&A with analysts today, the new SageMaker. Really important, really momentous, bringing together of all data and workloads in one place, really important, and very artfully done in that they're not, this is not a rip and replace. It's meeting customers where they are and letting them continue to use their experiences, continue to use the assets that they've already built, leverage all their investments, but create this new shared space that will help them unlock new things. I think it's a great move.
I thought it was interesting because I keep hearing people having mixed reaction to, some folks are calling it the SageMakerization of everything. Some people are trying to figure out, okay, is this is this like mega SageMaker? Is it like the Uber SageMaker? I think there is some question about what's happening there. Like, do we call it the bed maker, the bedrock maker? Like, I'm not sure.
There is a little naming confusion inside of it because there's a new SageMaker AI, which is the AI and ML development space. That's the new SageMaker, whereas this SageMaker experience and studio is the larger Uber experience for all data and data workloads that brings together all those things. So there is going to be some getting used to the new nomenclature, but SageMaker singular is the larger platforms.
Yeah.
SageMaker AI is that component that people used to think of for ML and AI development.
And most important, it's where customers wanted to head.
Yes, customers want, they want to have all their data in one place. They want to have all their workloads, the ability to not have to move data, copy data, have separate experiences. It's all a unified workspace. They're going to share projects. We're doing all the same things against the same data, So I think it's really been a long-term trend with the rise of the Lakehouse, and we give Databricks some credit for kind of coming up with that idea, and it's just the logical extension of that and bringing it together.
Okay, I like it. I'm going to come back to you for another naming conversation in just a second. Larry, you enjoy standing in front of high-capacity like fire hoses. It is, in fact,
just enjoy it.
It's just a hobby of CR Insights. If you have not gone on and logged on to Constellation's website and seen just the sheer amount of news that Larry's been covering, just go back and do it.
How many articles
It's insane.
for this show?
Too many.
Too many.
I think yours says
I think I counted
10,
9.
like 6,
just
7
for
per day.
yesterday.
Right?
I want to say at
Something,
least
yeah.
like 10,
Right.
but
Definitely
what has
10.
Per day.
Okay, if you're looking at the totality of what has been announced, and I'm going to ask you to look at that through the lens of what's been announced. We're heading into 2025. If I asked you to remember something January 1st about what you saw here this week, what's going to come back to your head first?
Well, I'll just follow up a little on what Doug said, but it's with the SageMaker, there's still confusion there. Because for the last year, if this were like a Star Wars movie, it'd be like SageMaker Strikes Back, right? Because for the last year, branding-wise, all we heard was Bedrock, Bedrock, Bedrock.
Yeah.
It kind of became the Gen AI brand. And now, we had a bunch of executive meetings, and you're kind of like, all right, so how these two fit together, and they kind of go together, and, they're siblings, or... I don't think
the
that's...
relationship is not clarified, right? The Bedrock to SageMaker.
No,
right?
but then, over a few beers, we
Bedrock
heard...
is a subcomponent of.
I think SageMaker will swallow Bedrock.
I think you're absolutely right.
Do you think it's gonna one's gonna eat the other? Because this is
It's
very
going to
exciting
become
stuff.
part of the SageMaker family.
Okay, but
It's
but
just-
is that
think,
where
of it
it's
as,
gonna go?
think of it as a family.
It's holding out
Yeah.
right now because
Okay.
of branding slowly moving. And let's
Yeah.
keep in mind, right? Amazon or AWS is chewing off the biggest thing they've ever chewed off, right? That's why the question to Matt Garman also, right? So
Right.
because it used to be all granular services which you would compose together. SageMaker was already a humongous thing for Amazon standards or AWS standards in the past. Now putting even more to it, that's a completely new thing. Right? I mean,
It's
what's
a
next?
suite.
They put
Yeah.
a version number on it. They deliver a roadmap, right? They're growing up and delivering what enterprise software usually is supposed to be, which I think is a positive development, right?
Yeah.
But now the question is like, how much do you put together? And I think they're aware of their older positioning without saying it anymore, and like slowly adding more to what matters to enterprise. Now, you could also say it took AI to rethink the Amazon packaging product bundling, which is a good thing, right?
Right.
So
So
ultimately,
that's the
what-
opportunity. So AI has been is AI the opportunity or is AI the catalyst? Because what I'm hearing from Doug is that data may be the catalyst because AI needs to have access to it. Or is it the other way around? We want to do AI, so therefore we have to rethink how we're articulating data.
To me, it's data fuels everything. We want one space for our data so that everybody that needs to use that data doesn't have to go to disparate places. I would think of it as more of a kind of Uber layer or a way that folks can access. They're going to be able to access all the things they used before.
Right.
Bedrock,
And nothing's going away, right? So it's
SageMaker
drop-
AI,
right,
the
yeah.
old SageMaker.
Exactly, right.
Except for the one model.
And Matt Garman's answer was, of course, like, yeah, we bundle these
a
together,
way
but
to-
everything is moving as fast. Nothing's going away. You can
Yeah.
still consume the granular service, which, of course, is very important, right? But everything works better together.
I
Yeah.
think the way to think about it is Bedrock's curated, SageMaker's more a toolbox where if you know what you're doing, you can do
I
it.
think that
Bedrock
might-
is a specific thing. I mean,
Right.
Yeah, it's model choices.
SageMaker also
it's more-
brings you the catalog over it all, the data governance over
Right.
it all.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the gatekeeper. It's kind of like the portal over all that data and all the different types of workloads you need to do with your data.
Right. But they all are what somebody I forgot who came up with. They're an opinionated architecture, meaning that somebody at Amazon, at AWS, an architect sat down, looked at this is how we're going to do this. This is
Right.
where the breakpoints are. This is where the plugs in. This is where it can change views, and this is where, for the scale of it, this is how it's going to be. Right. And that's the important thing for enterprises looking, CIOs, CDTOs, CXOs in general. Do the folding breaks in the API the old time, the parameters, the configuration, do they work for me? Or may they not work for me?
Right.
That's the interesting
Right.
question to ask. Every time you adopt a framework, has nothing to do with AWS, right? It's generally the framework question. I love the speed and productivity. Some analysts talk about enterprise acceleration, haha, pun intended. But I love the
fun. I think it's more of a
acceleration. I
reference,
love the
but okay.
acceleration, but I'm doing
He
a
plugs
deal.
that so often.
Often.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Strange,
He's just,
right?
he's
How does
just
it work?
walking down the hall.
Rolls.
Yeah. Acceleration. Right? Enterprise acceleration.
I need to
Enterprise
enterprise
accelerate.
accelerate and get there faster
Yeah.
because I'm late.
Exactly. Yeah, we always late, right? So
I
acceleration.
have to go to
is critical.
bathroom. I got
Acceleration.
accelerate.
Acceleration is real. We know it.
Oh.
It's tangible.
Behave.
Palpable. So I want the acceleration, right,
Yeah.
for the specific part, and I make a deal with assumptions. And hopefully those assumptions are in the mainframe, in mainstream of what I want to do, not in the mainframe. But if they're not, then switching costs are super, super expensive.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the interesting question.
So let me ask you guys this though, because yes, I think you're right. There was the big story, again, the SageMakerization of the world, right? We talk about SageMaker, talking about data, talking about Bedrock, having that conversation kind of felt like that view into the middle. But there was also a lot of conversation about foundation, what it was running on, the chips, the architecture. So let's spend a minute, and Holger, I'm going to start with you. There was a lot of conversation of, okay, we've got this chip, we're going to train it on this, we're going to go over here. We're back to that kind of the how and on the what conversation that we got away from to some degree, and then NVIDIA ran away with to some degree. So let's share with me kind of what you're taking away from this when it comes to chips, when it comes to kind of more of that hardware infrastructure side of what we're talking about here at AWS.
Yeah, because like Doug is right, it's data and AI, but it all works with storage, networking, which has to be fast, and chips, right? And Amazon is on this path. I keep saying Amazon. AWS is on this path
Right.
Of building their new Trainium version 2, right? I mean, they're on version 2 for most of that, and everything is Inferentia's version 2 as well. Everything's in version 2. It's better. And they're doing what everybody does. They're gluing them together, right? 16 form Ultra cluster, which has, of course, phenomenal more power.
Right.
And then they're building a super cluster or super whatever thing for QNX
Which
next
was
year, which is going to go to their main partner, quickly going back to the software layer, right? Anthropic to run their super models on there, right? But it's the hardware which fuels how fast your AI can be done, how good your AI will be, and how affordable your AI will be.
I was going to say, it comes back to the cost question of how, I mean, I don't want to say
how
cheap.
much carbon footprint, right? What does it do?
Right.
How do you cool this? How do you operate this, right? We had a good question on nuclear again. And everybody talks
Yeah, the
about
renewable
nuclear in the
energy
last month.
question was
Yeah,
great.
exactly, yep.
That was great because
So-
it wasn't, it didn't set Doug off by,
No.
talking about ESG.
We'll cover
in any way,
sustainability
shape,
if
or
anybody's
form.
wondering,
So that was good.
Sustainability.
Sustainability. Oh, sustainability. Sorry, we're not going
The
through the rest
key
of
thing
it.
is, right, AWS made progress there,
Yeah.
right? The lead, I don't know if we can mention the market leader, which is Google and the city, right, is still 3-4 years ahead, right? So the comparison statement looked a little bit like Google was faltering in their version 5, but in their current, name escapes me version, they blow it out of the chart, right? If you do dot your course, lower and then higher. So if you do it straight, it's in a linear line again.
Okay.
And that's like the dirty truth of hardware. And software you can buy, you can make up stuff in marketing. Hardware, those chips have
Little
to work.
harder to do.
And then you can't cut
Yeah.
any corner. So Google started 2012. AWS started 2018, 19, despite everybody saying we're doing, like, what was it, Matt Garman? Or was it Andy Jassy? We're doing AI since 25 years, right? Not generative AI, right? Which has its 2-year anniversary these days, right?
So I think the setup here with all the hardware stuff is AWS is setting itself up for when good enough is going to be fine with the models.
Okay.
Right? Because I do think, and this is not based on any technical thing, it's based on how people are reacting to the question when they get asked, like, are LLMs going to plateau? People get chippy. Part of it's they're talking their game.
They get chippy.
They get chippy. But yeah, they get like wound up a bit.
Yeah.
Now I understand they're talking their game, right? Because that means if it does plateau, well, maybe I don't need the Ferrari chips.
But that's the other aha moment, because you asked for January 1st, which is going to be there, right? And I can be wrong, I'm going on the limb, right? Because the big news last year, the big question was, will AWS announce an LLM? And they didn't, right? They said, the world doesn't need another LLM. We do Bedrock, we partner with Airbnb, bring you the LLM of your choice.
Right.
Now we got the Nova announcement, not even by Matt, but by Andy Jassy, Amazon CEO, former AWS CEO himself.
Underscoring
and
its
that's
importance.
an LLM, right?
Right.
So the question is more like, couldn't they afford it, didn't want to pay for it?
still
Or
question
they,
if it's
just
truly
to your
an
question,
LLM.
right? Did they, it's an LLM. The premiership, whatever the largest one, is 100%
that's an
an LLM,
LLM.
right?
Okay.
And even the little one, to only answer in text and receive text, of course is an LLM, right? I mean, smaller one, lightweight one, but I put text in, I get text out. That's the general Gen AI experience we have from user side. So they had to have the hardware to run those, right? Because AWS didn't want to pay somebody else who had a supercluster standing around to build the models, which maybe they were already on the software side, right? It was a precursor to Nova, as it's called right now. But that's, like, again, how the infrastructure, the Trainium 2, the Ultra cluster, the super cluster enables the things on the Sun deck in terms of like AI model automation and applications and SaaS and beyond the customers are coming.
But at the end of the day, it's basically, if you look at the Nova model, I think retail, it's a private label brand.
I thought of
That's kind of how I think of it.
I thought of it was fitting
get
that Jassy announced it. To me, it was like Amazon Basics or Amazon's Choice
Right.
on the site.
Right.
This is on AWS, their model.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a
this is
private
our
label
model
brand.
that'll
Yeah.
be good enough for,
Well, listen,
you know,
there were
I don't
plenty
think
of
it will,
us.
but-
There were plenty of us sitting there going, we thought it was really great that Andy Jassy had to run through all the customer service, all of the commerce, a lot of the things that in the Andy Jassy years of AWS keynotes didn't necessarily make the keynote stage. We weren't necessarily going to get up there. No, he didn't use the word connect. And in fairness, what a lot of people were seeing on those mobile screens, that was connect. That was their omni-channel capability to have that customer service motion. I think what the interesting thing that they didn't necessarily explicitly say was that through a lot of these models, and because they have those solutions, because they have things like SageMaker, like Bedrock, but like Q, all of these solutions across commerce, all of these solutions and partnerships with commerce giants, even folks like SAP, are completely changing because you can add Lens in quickly, have a generative background filled behind a chair. There are lots of new things that you can do now that you couldn't do, say, last year because it was too expensive on multiple fronts.
And which, let's keep in mind, right? AWS is the IT platform arm of the largest e-tailer of Amazon. It's surprisingly or not surprisingly, lots of things that Amazon, the e-tailer, needs. Right?
Connect is the ultimate example of that.
In the announcement, right? It's always lightweight, cheap, fast, right? Retail margins are 1% to 2%, in e-tail maybe 4 or 5 if you're lucky, right? So that cost consciousness of running it out wasn't
100%.
like you're right, wasn't there a year ago, and now it seems to be there.
And remember, Jassy's game right now is taking a few pennies off of returns, supply chain, whatever, because it adds up into some serious money. And he's done that like the last 3 quarters.
Yeah.
And, it just moves the needle. And I think that's, I think that's driving, Nova, the Trainium, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because if you can, it shows up in the margins.
But I think that thought process is also showing up in not just in kind of the Jassy Amazon side of things, but even now in the Garmin AWS side of things, in simplicity and contract, right? So you now have that standardized, easy to redline, centralized Amazon contract. You have a robust marketplace and an ecosystem where customers can now easily procure and curate what it is that they need. I mean, we heard a great example from an EU bank, from NatWest, and said, listen, we had to take our entire contact center, move it on to Connect. We wouldn't have been able to do that unless the business trusted that we could test, that we could roll out, that this would deploy, that our people would be able to use it, that our intelligence would be there, that the guardrails were there. They were in there literally deploying, testing, rolling out. They went to their largest contact center first. When I say no one goes and does their largest contact center first in a migration, it's an understatement. But they had 7,000 agents move in a year and 10 months.
Because the business case was there.
The business case was there, but more importantly, business acceleration couldn't happen if business confidence wasn't there. Business confidence came because they kept the cost down, they kept the innovation rolling, and they kept the contracting simple. And they outright said, listen, we wouldn't have been able to do all of these AI tests if we weren't able to turn it on, test it, see quantifiable differentiated value, turn it off, test it again, turn it back on, without having the punishment of 90 credits going out because one operator accidentally ran a query that they didn't mean to run. And so I think there's that cost simplification and that understanding and that awareness of margin that is really seeping through a lot of what we saw here.
Well, it's covering IT.
While we are on the Sun Deck, right, which you cover with Connect call center applications, right, the SaaS space, which us curmudgeons never get on. Larry can write about sometimes, right, where people have to
where all the pina coladas
people
are
have to apply the sunscreens to get that fix right on the Sun Deck of enterprise
Doug's
software.
down
Right?
with the mole
Any other key
data,
takeaways? What's your January 1st remembrance of the Connect capabilities that came out here at re:Invent?
That's a really good question. I think that for me, it is the fact that people are deploying and they are using, that this is not a scenario with Connect where they are sandboxing with a couple hundred agents here or there. They are really looking at this as building blocks. And I think there's a very interesting differentiation that I certainly saw from this week. I think everyone talks about AWS as being like the lander of Bob the Builder, and we even had Legos. We were playing with them during the keynote, right? Everyone's got Legos, and we're all gonna be the builders, and we're coming out to build. I think that's an oversimplification, especially when it comes to the world of Connect, of I want to be a builder. You don't necessarily wake up in the morning and say to yourself, I want to rebuild a contact center. It's just not what happens. But if you like Legos and someone hands you a Lego box that says Modern Digital Contact Center, and you start to read the sign and it's like cheaper, more efficient, better customer engagement, single throat to choke, essentially. I'm going to look at that picture. I'm going to build it exactly the way the box is. I think about my daughter all the time when I think about these things, right? Because Reagan will tell me, I love Legos, but I don't like to think about what I want to build. I want to build it first to the picture, and then I'll play with it.
Right.
And when it comes to Connect, there is a huge, huge market of contact center leaders, and especially contact center leaders that are feeling the pinch from CFOs and from CIOs who are now being told they've got a lot of data. Go get it, right? Go get all that data from the contact center now.
Yeah.
They're getting told that, and they're having to think to themselves, I don't know what my Lego kit looks like. I better go figure that out. So I think there's a ton of opportunity there.
But nobody wants to do contact center just to power knowledge base, right? Knowledge base is so old, right? It's all about how can I augment with AI. So AI is again the thing which helps everybody on this. But the builder message doesn't work so well on the Sun Deck. On the Sun Deck, you want to buy. I want to buy my Sun chair. I want to get my promenade deck. I want to get my butler.
But I will say,
so because
no code has kind of ruined that, right? No code is kind of like the self-tanner.
Allows you to do something.
It lets you to kind of do some of those things.
We are working this Sun.
We are going to work the Sun Deck. We are going to do it.
Well, I'm shoveling coals in the fire somewhere in the infrastructure deck. But as we are on the Sun Deck list, right? Let's quickly give the other Sun Deck experience.
Well, I was going to say, because I feel Hannah coming through the walls here. She's not with us, but she's going to say that we got to wrap this up.
Give Doug the chance to talk about QuickSight.
Well, that's exactly what I said, because I want to ask you about Q, and I want to ask you about QuickSight. What are your impressions there?
Yeah, two interesting things with QuickSight. First, the marriage of Q in QuickSight with QuickSight Business, with Q Business.
Q for Business,
So you're looking at the structured data analysis and the knowledge base ramifications. I had lots of questions about how, and I'm anxious to see how well those two come together and you get accurate, non-hallucinatory connections between document insights and data insights. So that is interesting. And also something that came up in Swami's keynote today, a scenario capability in QuickSight, which is really interesting. It's not the only one. There's others with kind of planning and scenario analysis capabilities, but it's an emerging area in the BI space. So
I like it.
Interesting to watch.
Awesome. Larry, Q?
I think Q Business got a story, which I don't think it had 3 months ago.
Nice.
I remember having this conversation, getting blank stares.
Yeah, fair.
So I think Q Business right now with that Q index sets a stage where they could probably get into automating workflows and things like that. So I think Q Business is ultimately going to be like glue between all these services.
Yeah, fair.
And it's going to be the glue that the CFO, the CIO, the CEO
the ultimate cool slide.
They're going to understand, right? Because Q Developer has all the ROI in the world, but the audience is limited. Q Business is a much larger.
Q Business gets AWS more to the Sun Deck, right? And we learned, like I'm trying to figure out what is the Q architecture behind it. And what one of our briefings on developer was clear to me when we asked, hey, what are you going to do with Lakehouse? Which you announced, and they're going to stairs in the headlights, right? Then it was clear to me that the approach is not like building a platform and then everybody builds on the platform, which in hindsight, it was stupid, right? I should have thought Amazon, tiny budgets and so on. They're not going to wait for monetization, say everybody wait for 1 year and then we build a platform. No, they're building 3 to 4 different separate Q things, which of course run all on AWS, but they somehow will have to come together. Right, hoping for that to come together at some point. Because the interesting thing is, a year ago, we also saw a conversational UI for Q, right, in the demos, right, which would go, oh, here I'm running my AWS instances. Oh, here's my revenue from SAP and Workday. Oh, here's my Java code that just generated. Here's my QuickSight thing. Right, we haven't seen any demos like this. Maybe I missed them. They were not in our track, certainly.
Yeah.
So that shows that the 4 or 5 things they're building, they will have to put some glue to bring them back up together, which is relatively easy if the underpinnings work, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting through the year to see how they're doing the shoveling on the infrastructure side, right? I mean, Doug and me, I believe strongly there needs to be a lakehouse infrastructure on the bottom of it. Why have that not only one side, but across the air? But that's something to watch in 2025.
I think Q Business, they're just knocking out use case by use case.
Yeah. But I think everything's evolving really quickly. So I think someone's got to start knocking out the use cases that are actually usable.
Right.
Because we've got an awful lot of use cases out there for things like this. But I was actually pleasantly surprised that here at AWS, we were talking about practical applications of it.
Right.
So I'm hoping that we keep seeing that as we roll through the year.
And saw lots of customers with
exactly
real, I think a lot of vendors this year did this head fake. Oh, don't worry about copilots. Agentic.
Agents!
Whereas here they're really reviewing success with generative AI and still looking forward to the agent, but they've got actual customer case studies with concrete benefits.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that is going to do it for us here. Thank you guys so much. Again, special edition CRTV live. Thanks to the amazing AR team. Thank you guys so much for arranging for this. We really appreciate all of you. But hey, until next reinvent, to restage, the restuff, to reconvenes.
Until Q Studio.
Until Q
Next
Studio
year.
gets us together. Thanks, guys. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you.